Laura A. Grace here, the author of Dear Author, Letters from a Bookish Fangirl, Team Lines of Poetry Collection, and Finding God Anime Devotional for OTAKUS, which is free on a variety of platforms. I'll leave a link down below in case if you'd like to check it out. Happy Wednesday, my friends! I am so excited that you're here. So excited for this, I was about to say manga review, but for this manga video because we are talking about manga that we would recommend for Top 5 Wednesday. But if you're not familiar with Top 5 Wednesday was formed by Lainey back in 2013. The group is now since on Goodreads, and I'll also leave a link down below in case if you'd like to check it out. Our current host, Alex, creates a series of prompts for Wednesday, and then on that Wednesday we choose 5 books, or in this case manga, that reflect that said prompt. And as I mentioned, today is recommended. I guess I should say recommendable, because technically that is the technical name of the prompt for today. But the question is, when a friend comes up to you for a recommendation, what recommendations would you give? So I get to share 5 of them, but I'm technically cheating today because if I wanted to go with the actual recommendations, I go the most. Goodness, you guys hear me talk about them all the time. You guys have seen me talk about them. So I'm going to cheat and give you those 5, but then I'm going to change it and do like 5 recent reads, or just 5 reads that I don't typically recommend, or at least I should say recently, and then share those recommendations. Does that make sense? So I'll share 5 that I'm always recommending, and then 5 that I'm going to recommend for, or like during this video. Okay, so for my first 5 that I'm literally always recommending to people, and in no certain order, Play It Cool, guys. Love this manga so much. Snowy with the red hair, I just talked about it, I think like twice this month, so I was like, we definitely can't talk about it again, but yes, definitely this one. Kimi Totokay, one of the classic shoujo titles in my opinion, and a must read. A Sign of Affection, always A Sign of Affection, always, so good. And definitely last but not least, Spy X Family, because it's absolutely amazing. So technically, these are 5 titles that I'm always recommending at some point, one way or another, and when people are like, what manga should I read? I'm like, read these because they're absolutely amazing. But there are so many incredible, amazing manga titles out there, and I wanted to spotlight some different manga that I haven't talked about very much, because these are ones that I would also recommend. And I'm going to start off with number 1, Hat Italia. I recently just finished this like the night before filming this video. So good. To every person who said I would love this, you were right. And I definitely know Meet the Weeb family mom mentioned it recently that I would love it, and you were right. And just not just her, but I know there have been other people who are like, yes, it is so good. You need to read it. You're going to love it. And you guys were totally right. Like, this story was so magical. Like, if you need a fantasy that is just so beautiful, like art and story-wise, and just pulls you in and grips you, this is a must check out. Like, this is a must read. Like, if I could, I would just go buy the rest of the series right now, because I was just so impressed how much this story moved me, how it made me feel like a kid again, and just, I love Coco. Like, she just wrapped me in a bear hug. Actually, probably more accurately is she's like, hey, come on this adventure with me, takes my hand and just starts sprinting, and either I can let go of her hand or I can start running faster to keep up with her, because she is just this beautiful thing of energy and excitement and love and passion. And I just loved everything I felt, except for the heartbreak. I did not like the heartbreak. If you've read this manga, you know what I'm talking about. That was pretty sad. But besides the heartbreak, everything is amazing. It is so good. I definitely highly recommend it. And this will be going in at least my top 10 favorite manga of this year, because I just can't believe how much I loved it. Like, I will confess, I'm not a huge personal reader on like witches and spells, and I've never been a huge fan of Harry Potter. That's just because when I was a kid, I tried reading and I thought it was really boring. And I'm sorry to say that to all the Harry Potter fans out there, and I've just never returned back to it. So I guess I would say if I'm getting back to like those fantasy roots or fantasy elements, Hat Italia won me. I can't say I'm going to go off and read Harry Potter now, but I definitely want to read more of this series, and I highly recommend it. For number 2, this is by one of my favorite mangaka, and this title is Love in Focus. I definitely recommend this whole series. It's only 3 volumes, very sweet. It is a very good manga to read if you're like, it has been a long day, it's been a rough day, and I just need something to get my mind off of the long day. Love and Focus delivers that. It is a stress-free and drama-free love triangle, very good. And I love her work so much. Love and Focus may not be my favorite series by her, but I will definitely agree. I Buddy read this with Marg, and we both felt that as the series progressed, or like the volumes progressed, it got better. And it's not bad, definitely not saying that, but it's very casual, and it's very relaxing in my opinion. And I loved the third volume. It was so good, and I loved the story as it progressed. Our main characters are awesome, especially Mako. And I mean, it talks about photography. How many manga titles do we know that spotlight and feature photography? This one does, and it is so good. It's a very sweet story. I think it says, yeah, a sweet and charming romance about a girl finding her way. And yes, that is the perfect way to wrap up and sum up this series. I definitely recommend this one. For number 3, technically I have not finished this series, but I read volume 1 and then promptly pre-ordered volume 18, and then I've just been sort of ordering the manga as I go along, and I'm finally almost done collecting it. I'm really excited for that. But that manga is Takane and Hana. This manga is hilarious. It is hilarious. Like, if you genuinely need a super good laugh and you just want something that's fun and, as the manga says, doesn't take itself too seriously, Takane and Hana is a must read. It's hilarious. I know I said that twice, but it is so funny. And like I said, I wasn't even done with this volume when I went and pre-ordered volume 18 because I knew I wanted to have the whole series. These two together are they are quite the match. And like, they just butt heads all the time. I feel like they're always trying to one up the other person. And it's just such a fun story. It is an age gap manga, and I confess that I stayed away from it for a long time because of that. But I feel like it's done really well, and I don't know, I guess realizing that the like age of consent is lower or younger in Japan has made me change my view, and they're very, from what I've read so far, they're very respectful of each other's boundaries. Actually, I don't know, because there's a funny moment that's actually with that. But it's just a fun story, and I highly recommend it. Like, I am so excited to just straight binge read this whole series. I'm waiting for volume 18, like the release date, because it's November 2nd, I think, to get closer so that when I start reading, I can read all the way to the end, because I just need more of them. They are so cool, and I just love their antics that they do, and it's just great. It's just a very great story. All right, coming in number 4, I'm so excited for this. Like, this is probably one of my new favorite anime / manga. Oh, it is so good. And that is ID Invaded Break Broken. Oh my goodness. I am not one that's usually into like hardcore mystery or having to solve like who the killer is or anything of like that. Because years ago I had a nightmare after I watched like CSI, and I was like, nope, we're not doing this because I don't want any more nightmares. ID Invaded Break Broken broke that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so an interesting thing that you should know if you read this manga is actually the sequel to the anime. And some of the beginning made like 0 sense, but I gave this 5 stars, I think. I think it was like 5 stars because it is just, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. It is high stakes, high action. The mystery part is like on edge, and I love the premise of this world so very much. So after I finished this one, I saw that the reviews were like really low on Goodreads, and then I was like, well, I'm gonna go see if they're better on Amazon, and they were, and people were like, this is the perfect sequel to the anime, and I was like, there's an anime? And there is. It's on Funimation, so I was like, well, you know, we're just gonna watch the first 2 episodes, and I was like hooked. Like, I've been trying to convince my husband to let us get Funimation because we have Crunchyroll. I'm like, I just need to watch it for this anime. Like, it's just so mind-blowingly epic, and I love the fact that like basically for a really low-key version is he goes into like a virtual reality. It's called ID Well, but we're just gonna say virtual reality because it's just easier to call it that. But he goes into a virtual reality like world of the serial killers, and he sees their subconscious, and it's different for every single person, and it's just so fascinating. It's just so fascinating, and he never knows, our main guy here never knows who he is there, and so, but once he sees what is her name? Oh man, I can't remember her name, but once she sees this girl or this young woman, he then remembers that he's here to crack this case and that he has to solve why she died using different clues, I guess, that are in the subconscious. I feel like clues is really big, but it is so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend this. Like, this is one of my new favorite series this year. I'm not even done reading the series, but I'm totally calling it. It's in my top 10 for sure. I have pre-ordered volume 3. I already have volume 2 somewhere on my shelf. Yep, right here. And because like this ended on a cliffhanger and I'm like, I am not going to do this to myself and start volume 2 without volume 3. Like, no, we have to have it. So I recommend it. There's no really like blood or gruesome or anything like that, even though it is, I think, like TVMA. I have not figured that one out because I'm like Demon Slayer and Cells at Work are more graphic, but they're not TVMA. At least I don't think they are. But anyway, that was a ramble, but check out ID Invaded. Check out the anime and then come and gush with me so we can just talk about how good this series is. And in the anime, last ramble, I promise, the voice acting is on point. It is so good. It is so good. Anyway, let's go on to number 5. But I recommend this manga. Okay, for number 5, I had to feature a sports title. You know I had to do it because I love my sports, and I'm going to go with Dive. It is a 3-volume series. It's actually an anime or a manga adaptation of the anime. Did I say that right? Or is it more of an anime adaptation? Either way, it was an anime and they made a manga. It's 3 volumes and I love Dive. I read Dive at a really hard, trying time, I guess you'd say, in my life that was going on with some friendships, and I just found this series to be exactly what I needed at the right moment. I love our main guy, Tomoki. He's just so inspiring, and I love, there's sort of a analogy maybe about breaking out of the glass that we are in, like a glass dome, glass box, and it plays a role through the series, and I just loved how the series concluded and just the adventure on the way. The artwork is just so beautiful. I don't know why I'm showing it to myself. I've already read it. And I love the 3 guys. They are great. I don't even know which one my favorite character is because they're all different and very unique, and I just love how each of them personally grows because it's interesting. Swim club is not necessarily a group or a team sport. It's definitely more solo, so at times they're challenging one another to do things, but also at the same time it is sort of like a group sport, so they're all also cheering for one another. I just loved it. I loved it. It is a great sports manga to read when you're like, I want a short sports manga, you know what I mean? Because like Haiku is like, what, 45 volumes long, and that is definitely an investment. And so 3 volumes is good, and I love the covers, and just, it is so good. I've been meaning to watch the anime, but I was really moved and touched by the manga, so it's hard for me to want to go watch the anime right now. I probably need like a year before I can actually go watch it so that it won't be, like, the manga won't be as fresh in my mind. But this is a great series, and I should talk about it more because I just found it very moving and inspiring, and the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. And I suppose to wrap up my rambles for Top 5 Wednesday, those are the 5, though technically 10 manga titles I would recommend, and I definitely want to start recommending more often because they are all just so good and such fantastic stories. But what are some titles that you would recommend, friends? I'm always looking for new recommendations, even though my list is already very long. But hey, adding more manga to the list doesn't hurt at all. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching. Bye!